Well, I wanted to watch the return of Better Call Saul, but I had to work. So I figured, hey, AMC always repeats the show that they premiere during the night. So no problem, I'll catch the repeat when I come home. Unfortunately, the show they decided to repeat was The Walking Dead. Oh, God, that god-awful show that should have ended years ago, instead of now being allowed to linger on as a maggot-infested shell of its former glory. So, yeah. So, anyway, that inspired me to check out another show instead that was once great, but is now not so much. Yes, that being Doctor Who. Yeah. So, tuned in to the latest episode of Doctor Who, and a funny thing happened. Ascension of the Cybermen was actually pretty good. Who knew? Of course, the previous episode, which was really pretty sorry and bad, which was just a setup for this one, while insulting Mary Shelley and all that. But it sets this up, even though there's still the element of time travel in which it appeared to suggest that the Doctor in the future had set up what happened in the Frankenstein episode, and the Doctor had to go set these events, forward or what have you, by going into the future and all that. Well, I guess, but maybe they'll resolve that, but probably not. It's typical of the laziness of the series. But we open up, actually there's two stories going on. There's this strange, mysterious story going on about a young man named Brendan who basically has a Superman origin story. He's just found and then adopted by this couple, and he grows up and becomes a police officer, and then gets shot and falls off a cliff, which he couldn't possibly survive, and yet he does, and doesn't even have a bullet wound, and so that's mysterious. Then he grows old and retires, and then is dragged into an electric chair, and his brain gets fried because his father and his chief at the police, both of whom haven't aged mysteriously, tell him he can't remember his life. They have to wipe it from his memory or what have you. And so, all very odd and strange, but this plays out through the show. So, okay, what's that about? Well, we'll get back to that. I'll tell you the rest of the show at this point. So the Doctor and her crew show up to help what appears to be the last survivors of humanity after being hunted down by Cybermen. There was this great cyber war, and most of the Cybermen have been wiped out, but there's still enough of them left, and they're bound and determined to wipe out humanity. And of course, they're led by the lone Cyberman. Now, the lone Cyberman, at the time when he first appeared, I assumed that he was battle damaged, and that's why he looks the way he does. Well, it turns out he was actually initially rejected by the Cybermen. I guess he just didn't measure up or what have you. And so apparently, but he wanted to be a Cyberman so bad that he's made himself one. And now he's intent on bringing back the Cybermen after they've been pretty soundly defeated. The space they travel through in this show is littered with cyber corpses floating around. And it's kind of cool, I mean, it's just with the remnants of whatever the battle was. So anyway, this small group of humans are desperate. They're trying to find a sanctuary planet they've heard of, and that there's surefire safety there, they believe, and they're trying to get to it. And then, here come the Cybermen. Well, the Doctor says, don't worry, I'm going to help you. And here they do give nods to things of the past of Doctor Who, and most notably the old situation where the Cybermen were, for whatever reason, allergic to gold. And people would, spray gold at them, put gold in it. The Doctor even smashed Adric's little gold badge into the Cyber Leader, killing, all this type of stuff. Well, I guess later on they thought that was silly, and it was kind of dropped. And I believe during Matt Smith's time they even mentioned, they've evolved since then and have perfected their cyber bodies. That's why they always look different as you go forward, and that's no longer a problem. But just in case, I guess, the Doctor brought some of that and her plan to defend these people against the cyber attack. Well, it doesn't work. The Cybermen, instead of showing up themselves, attack with cyber heads. These were the cyber drones, but they just looked like Cybermen heads flying around, and they were shooting things up. And, well, basically, they make short work of the Doctor's attempt to protect these people. It doesn't work. Everything falls apart. This ends up splitting up her crew. But a telling moment here is where the Doctor realizes she's defeated, and so she tells him to run and seek refuge and try to escape. There is a spaceship that the humans have. It wasn't working well, but you got to try. And I'm going to stay behind and keep them from pursuing you. And she even has a moment of humility, which is the first we've seen of this in this Doctor, and says something that is completely true. She says, I've been very reckless with you. Yes, you have. I mean, for the most part, they fail to depict this Doctor as having any real concern or care for her companions. And that's just really a no-no. And it would fit with an overall narrative if they'd actually thought through something like that there was something going on with this Doctor and she needed to resolve this or what have you. Something that you would have done in the first, her first season within a few episodes, and then it gets resolved and she's more of herself, whatever she's going to be. But they didn't do that. It was just lazy writing is all it was. But here, it's just, I don't know if that's the intention or whatnot, but it just, boy, that's a good line, because it's so true. So, they're separated. She ends up with Ryan. He gets separated from them. Then Graham and Yaz end up with some of the humans, the surviving humans who escape on their own spaceship, and off they go, and the Cybermen are in pursuit. Meanwhile, the Doctor, Ryan, and another kid, really, his father gets killed trying to sacrifice himself for him, but the kid tries to sacrifice himself, but the father gets killed anyway by lone Cyberman, but the kid helps the Doctor and Ryan escape on one of the Cybermen's ships. And here again, we get a scene where we learn that the kid credits everything to his father having taught him how to hotwire a Cyberman ship and steal it, all this stuff. And he even demonstrates that the Doctor attempts to do this herself, but the kid proves that he's better at it and all that. But the interesting thing here is you actually have a scene where a father is not depicted as a loser or pathetic or anything like that. He's actually, the father-son relationship is depicted as very good. And boy, how did that slip through the BBC? So that was something. Well, how about that? So off they go in their own way. The humans with Graham and Yaz end up in the battlefield. That's the lost battlefield, the Cyber War, and there's where all the dead Cybermen bodies everywhere. And they manage to eventually get into an old cyber warship, and they search it. Now, probably one of the bigger problems of the show is that it drags too long. And all of it is about mystery and everything. But eventually they discover, of course, it's a cyber war. There's a bunch of dormant Cybermen in hibernation, I guess, in the ship. And, you know what's going to happen. They're going to wake up. But the interesting thing about it is these Cybermen look far more like the classic Cybermen, at least in the face, from, the 70s and 80s, which I really appreciate. So they're there waiting to be awakened, and they eventually are by the lone Cyberman, who does something to them that's quite painful to them, but I guess it makes them obey him or what have you. And Graham and Yaz are trapped, and it doesn't look good. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Ryan and the kid there, they find the sanctuary planet, and there's just this old man there who had fought in the cyber war, and he says he's there hoping other people will come and survivors and lead them to the border, Well, what the hell's the border? Well, the border apparently is this bizarre, I guess, wormhole that appears on the beach. And when the doctor approaches it, you see it forms, and they're looking at, oh, wow, what's this? And then all of a sudden it opens to Gallifrey. Well, oh, no. And the old man says, well, I've never seen it do that before. And I'm thinking perhaps it's because the doctor's presence is there to make it open there. Perhaps other people who may have gone through it went somewhere else. But anyway, and then guess who pops out of it? Yes, the Master. So we're full circle now for this season. The Master shows up. And that's the problem, because all of this has just been leading to next week's episode, which will reveal the terrible retcon of Doctor Who. And it's all but certain. I mean, there's been Reddit leaks that seem pretty genuine, because it seems to add to this about that the Joe Martin Doctor is the Timeless Child, and the Timeless Child is who the Doctor originally was, some girl who was abducted by the Time Lord so that they could steal her ability to regenerate. And apparently the reason the Doctor can regenerate forever is because the Doctor always could. And all those nasty Time Lords did this, and the Doctor was never really a Time Lord. Boy, it's just really stupid. It's so god-awful and lazy. And then the whole business about the TARDIS always being a police box is really stupid. But they're probably going to do this. And basically, the teaser for the next week episode, the episode of the season that changed everything. Well, what else could it be? So it's not enough that the Doctor could become a woman. The Doctor had to have always been a woman, and the men were merely posers and frauds, if you will. So it's just too bad. But overall, this particular episode, left to itself, wasn't that bad. It's just basically a chase episode, but they sort of did okay. Even the Doctor, and now that the Doctor is stressed and worried and frightened, actually showing some genuine performance here, I think a darker take on the Doctor would have worked to Jodie's strengths, and it should have been something they should have done, but they didn't. In fact, I always thought that Bill should have stayed on, especially in her Cyberman form. Would have made for a great narrative for the Doctor, desperate to try to fix Bill, restore her to her original self and all that. And Cybermen could have been a really great recurring theme there. But alas, it didn't happen, and we're stuck with this crap. And so that's just too bad. Now, back to the mysterious Mr. Brendan. Who could that be? Well, could that be the Doctor from his original time? But it's a man. There's the possibility that that's what this is about, that there's something to this, the mysterious child who shows up. It's not Superman. Although bullets don't hurt him, so they steal from Frankenstein and whatever. Now they're going to steal from Superman, So that's it. Is this the Doctor memory wipes, or is that the Master memory wipes? Because I think they're determined that the original Doctor be female, so that wouldn't quite work out with that. But who knows? Maybe that's what they're going to do, and then this Brendan guy regenerates into Joe Martin. I don't know. The other thing would be that this guy has some relationship to who the lone Cyberman is. Is he the lone Cyberman? Well, why is he bulletproof? Is it all just a simulation? And whoever this guy is will be revealed in the next episode. So, yeah, there's some strangeness there, but overall, the direction they appear to be going and the idiocy of Joe Martin's Doctor being a pre-Hartnell entity of some sort is just really awful, and would have worked much better if she was just a future Doctor, and that would have been an interesting, cool thing, and that would be different and new to have a new Doctor introduced that early, and to have her succeed Jodie, But they didn't do that. No, they got to do this nonsense, and once they do, I think that's pretty much it. Doesn't matter. They got another season to go, but so what? Had they more episodes in this style and stuff, like I said, I think a darker take on things instead of this silly goofiness that's been going on. I don't know. might have pulled it off. But instead, it's all this deconstruction nonsense that's slapped in here on top of just a very extremely lackluster and dumbed down Doctor Who. It's too bad. And that's why this episode, even though I'm saying it wasn't bad, it was pretty good. I was kind of taken aback a bit here and there. It just goes to show how sad it didn't have to be this way. You know? You might have had something. But I don't know what's going on there. BBC interference, what? I don't know what it is, but it's just too bad. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe? And check out that link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you. Especially over at IndiePlanet.com, where you can get a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yes. Plus, you can check out the Mr. Nailsin Show over at RadioMisfits.com. New episodes every Saturday. And you can also watch my videos over at BitChute. Yes, the Mr. Nailsin channel at BitChute.com.